in police abuse is because there was a demon that was inside me, and the only way that demon was going to leave me is for me to go in. And so I joined the NYPD, and I fought from within and spent my entire career fighting.
It is said by police and their supporters that here you have two incidents that were tragically fatal, but they involved men who had broken the law in some minor way, who were being confronted by police, who appeared to be resisting or difficult in some way. And yes, things got out of hand, but they were being difficult, and police were doing their jobs. They're police saying that they feel that their point of view has been completely ignored and overlooked by everyone except, of course, the grand juries. Do you ever feel that way?
No, because the enforcement of laws and the methods used should be equal to the violation or criminal action. You can't use lethal methods when someone is participating in a non-lethal action. What happened in Staten Island is what I am attempting to get clear to all of our police agencies, is that in communities of color, the actions and training and skills that police officers acquire, they do not utilize it when they come to a Eric Gardner type situation. They do not take the patience that's needed. So no one is saying that police officers are wrong for responding to calls of service. I want my police officers to respond if someone is selling Lucy's, if someone is playing their music too loud. I want my police officers to come. But when they come, I want them to use the force that's equal to the crime that is being reported, not for them to come with a one-size-fit-all enforcement in communities of color. And that's where we're going wrong, and that is what we have to acknowledge.
That's Eric Adams.
And there you have it, ladies and gentlemen, Eric Adams. Now I'm just going to play this little audio here for you, and you can take a listen. This is sort of broadening the horizon somewhat.
If you want to convince a group of people that everything about them is negative, what you have to do is tell them where they're from is a negative place. And this is what they've done to black people. They say, black people, you're negative, you're bad, because Africa is negative and Africa is bad. So the images that we have of Africa, we always see the underbelly. We always see the propaganda. We always see the warfare, but they never show the other side.
One of the things that I've discovered about conquered people is that most conquered people have had their ancestral memory erased. And they only know what missionaries or enslavers have taught them. And usually it's negative.
There is good, there is bad, there is advancement, and there is a lack of advancement in all cultures. The problem is that this society tends to want to show you the extended belly of a baby in Ethiopia. It wants to show you the negativity of Africa.
People think Africa and Asia and Guatemala, Southern America, these places were all jungle. Jungle came after the invasions of European colonialism. Then the jungles came in because nobody was manning the land anymore.
Look at the map. Just this map tells you alone that the great majority of Africa is grassland. It shows you right here. It's grassland, no jungle. In fact, the Everglades, by proportion, there's more jungle in the Everglades than there is proportionately in Africa, and that's in Florida.
There's more jungle in Europe and in Asia than there is in Africa. Without a doubt, Africa has its wetlands, it has its greenery, some of the most beautiful animal kingdoms in the world. But most of Africa is not jungle. There's more jungle on the other continents than there is in Africa. In fact, you have vast greenlands in Africa, miles, tens of thousands of miles of nothing but flat, beautiful green land.
Whenever they show images of Africa, they like to show the hunter-gatherers, the bushmen, the brothers running around half naked with sticks. And that really represents about 1% of the whole population of Africa. As a matter of fact, you have those same hunter-gatherer people up in Europe. There's a group of people called the Sami people who live just like that, who live in mud huts, and they live that hunter-gatherer experience. But you never see any kind of mention of them in the media. You only see the African bushmen, but you never see the rest of the whole continent and see how people are really living over there. Whenever you look at old Tarzan movies or old cartoons from back in the 1920s and 30s, they would always show the cannibalistic African person dancing around in the jungle with a big pot, putting in missionaries, cooking them and eating them. And that's a major myth about Africa, because there is no evidence of any kind of cannibalism going on in Africa.
There is no evidence of cannibalism in Africa. In fact, if you read a book called Man-Eater, there's more references to Europeans eating each other in the cold than there is Africans eating each other in the warmth. Why are you going to have a need to eat each other when the Creator and the Son has given you mango and peanuts and food to eat that comes to you plentifully? There's no evidence of it, but again, to denigrate Africa and Africans, they have to create an image that people...
There's so many fallacies about African people and African history and culture. And cannibalism is one example. Based on my study, I found more evidence of cannibalism practiced among Europeans in Virginia in the 1600s. There are documented cases of the first settlers coming to Virginia from England, coming here in fall and in the dead of winter and not having enough supplies to see them through that season. So there's documented instances of people exhuming the bodies of the dead and eating them. There's one particular instance, I forget the gentleman's name, but actually I read this in a National Geographic magazine about a man whose wife died and he kept her death a secret so that he could eat her corpse and survive the winter.
We are back with you. It's in the Village with Anselm Marjorie in the South Orange Maple Online Radio Experience. Coming to you every Monday through Friday from 8 to 9:30 p.m. That's 8 to 9:30 p.m. Now, I just received this story on Facebook, ladies and gentlemen. If many of you may know a gentleman by the name of Lawrence Otis Graham. He's an African-American attorney, a speaker, and a New York Best Times selling author. This guy have sold many books. He have done many things significant in the community. And he believes teaching his boys to act and dress a certain way will protect them being profiled from police. So let's take a listen. Let's see if we can listen to what Lawrence Otis Graham had to say. Let's take a listen. See if we can. I just received this on Facebook, ladies and gentlemen, so I'm sharing it with you. Let's see if we can get that up here.
My name is Lawrence Otis Graham. I'm an attorney. My wife's an investment banker. We both went to Harvard. I went to Harvard Law School and Princeton undergrad. My wife went to Harvard College, Harvard Law School, Harvard Business School. And we have 3 kids, 2 boys and a girl. For us, I think it was when the Trayvon Martin incident happened, when he was shot, because we thought our boys could have been in the very same circumstance, that could easily be our own sons. So that's when we realized we had to have the conversation. We are black, we're black, but we have to address it in certain ways by making sure that we're wearing clothes that are not ones that suggest that we are part of the criminal element, as people would say. It's no hoodies, it's no dark clothes. My boys know that they've got to be khaki pants. We don't do sweatshirts with words and names on them. This is really casual for them. They don't do the t-shirt thing. And when it comes to jackets, raincoats, this is the only time you're going to see a hood in our house is on a raincoat or winter jacket. It's no colored high tops. It's loafers.
Sorry about that, ladies and gentlemen.
It's white tennis.
Technical difficulties here with this audio.
Sneakers. It's not carrying anything in your hand after sundown that could be misconstrued as a weapon. It's also making sure that when they go to stores, they get receipts. That they walk in, they make eye contact and nod and smile to the shop owner. They make sure that their bags are zipped and left in the car or outside the store. It's also making sure that they never run when in the presence of a police officer unless it's very apparent that they're dressed for jogging. They don't go out after sundown. My younger son said, "You're taking the fun out of being a black kid."
All right, ladies and gentlemen, we're having a little difficulties with that audio. So I'm going to post this on Facebook as well. But let me go to the article in the Washington Post. I taught my black kids that their elite upbringing will protect them from discrimination. I was wrong. This is Loris Otis Graham, who you just heard. I knew the day will come, but I didn't know how it will happen, where I would be, or how I would respond. It is the moment that every black parent fears, the day their child is called a nigger. My wife and I are both African American, constitute one of those typical A couples with Ivy League, undergraduate and graduate degree, who, for many years, believed that if we worked hard, maintained great job, we could insulate our children from the blatant manifestations of bigotry that we experienced as children in the 60s and the 70s. We divided our lives between a house in liberal New York suburb and an apartment on Park Avenue, sent our 3 kids to a diverse New York City private school, and outfitted them with the accoutrements of success, preppy clothes, perfect diction, and the air of quiet graciousness. We convinced ourselves that the economic privilege we bestowed upon them could buffer their adolescence against so many black and Latino children face, while living in mostly white setting, being profiled by neighbors, followed in stores and stopped by police, simply because their race makes them suspect. But it happened never too less in July when I was 100 miles away. It was a Tuesday afternoon when my 15-year-old son called from his academic summer program at a leafy New England boarding school and told me he was walking across campus. A gray Acura with a broken rear taillight pulled up beside him. 2 men leaned out of the car and son moved closer to the curb and asked politely, "I'm sorry, I didn't hear you." But he heard correctly, and this time the man spoke more clearly. "Only, nigger," he said, with the added emphasis. My son froze. He dropped his backpack and, alarmed, and stepped back from the idling car. The men hung their horn loudly and drove off, their laughter echoing behind them. By the time he recounted his experience a few minutes later, my son was back in his dorm, ensconced on the 3rd floor of a red brick fortress. He tried to grasp the meaning of the story as he told it. Why the men chose to stop him. Why they did it in broad daylight. Why they were so calm and deliberate. Why would they do that to me? He whispered breathlessly into the phone. "Dad, they don't know me, and they weren't acting drunk. It's just 3:30 in the afternoon. They could see me, and I could see them." My son rambled on, describing the car and the men, asking questions that I couldn't completely answer. One very clear and cogent query was why, in Connecticut in 2014, grown men would target a student who wasn't bothering them to harass in broad daylight. The men intended to be menacing. They got so close, like they were trying to ask directions. They were definitely trying to scare me, he said. "Are you okay?" I interrupted. "Are you?" "Yes," he continued anxiously. "I'm okay, I guess." "Do you think they saw which dorm I went back to? Maybe I shouldn't have told my roommate. Maybe I should stay in my dorm and not go to the library tonight." Despite his reluctance, I insisted that he report the incident to the school. His chief concern was not wanting the white student administration to think of him as being special, different, or racial. That was his words. "If the other kids around here find out I was called a nigger and that I complain about it," my son pleaded, "they will call me racial and we'll be thinking about race every time they see me. I can't have that." For the next 4 weeks of the summer program, my son remained leery of cars that slowed in his proximity. He's still leery today. He avoided sidewalks, choosing to walk on campus lawn, and he worried continually about being perceived as racially odd or different. Now, this is a long article, ladies and gentlemen, so I'm just going to get to the last part.